The Connector Next Door is your invitation to meet the natural connectors all around us. They represent the everyday event planners who are energizing their communities every single day. Their stories are familiar, fun, and full of charm. Your host, Lisa Garrow, is a lifelong event planner and has been a connection strategy coach for over a decade. She knows events can become energized connecting points where communities can gather and grow. Let's listen in as she strikes up a conversation with today's Connector Next Door.
Jessica McNaughton has learned that by chasing the things that bring her joy and that help her feel fulfilled, there would be more to come. She now spends her days following that positive energy and engaging with those that drive her purpose. As the CEO and founder of MemoryKPR Technologies, Jessica is joyfully building a company committed to connecting the world through story. She believes we all have more habits to capture media than ever before, but fewer safe solutions to create and protect our stories for the future. Jessica is ensuring we have somewhere to keep the most cherished memories for years to come. I chatted with Jessica virtually from her home of Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan about her exciting startup based out of the nearby, vibrant prairie city, Regina, the capital city of the Canadian province of Saskatchewan. I love how Jessica shares how connection to her feels like a big warm blanket that wraps us up and warms our relationships. Given that she is calling on her long-time relationships to build a platform that helps us all create deep, lasting, long-time relationships, it's a perfect analogy. Well, welcome back, everyone, to the Connector Next Door. This podcast is for anyone planning or promoting their own events, which you are part of that world. And Jessica, I am so glad you're here.
Thank you, Lisa. I appreciate this whole opportunity.
The kind of connections that you've been making, and what I love about, and people will learn a little bit about your platform and the work that you do as an entrepreneur. I would love to start today just understanding a little bit more about you as a connector. So maybe we'll start there, Jessica, if you don't mind just diving right in. What does connection mean to you? Big picture.
Yeah, big picture. It has been a theme throughout my entire life. I think selfishly thinking about connection the way I do, which is really understanding people in order to understand what connections add value to them and help them achieve what they want to achieve and grow the way they want to grow in a way that matches their values. I think living a life trying to seek those types of connections and help other people have those kinds of connections forces you to listen and to dig in and to understand what makes people tick and what can be more fascinating than that. I think the best connections we make are grounded in that. And so for me, connection, my whole life, most of the great things that have happened to me are because someone's connected me with someone or something. It's an idea, it's a person, it's an organization that's been aligned with my values, but also presented opportunities for me to learn and to grow and to meet new people. And so, I don't know, I just think the whole entire earth is just woven together with one big blanket of connection.
I love that.
Digging into it and it's just a great reason to get to understand what makes people tick and where their valuable connections are.
My husband and I have been married 10 years, and it's a little bit of a complicated juggling act to make sure that we're seeing all the kids and the grandkids and making sure that everyone's feeling connected.
Yeah.
And the idea of it being this blanket, the warmth of connection, kind of puts a different kind of a feel to it, where it's not just a have to do it, but we get to do that.
Yeah, it is. You get caught up in the busyness, but it really is a privilege to get to take, whether it's a minute or an hour or a day, to get to just be present in connection with people. And sometimes, I was thinking, as I said, finding the people whose values and who we align with thought process wise to connect. But I think equally so is there's the Christmas parties and there's the family that there are the people that we aren't necessarily aligned with that we're also making space and time to connect with. And that just also broadens our perspective and our horizons. And so I think of a couple of events where I've gone over the holiday season, celebrations and such, that I'm connecting with people who maybe we're not perfectly aligned, and getting to hear different stories and different perspectives and different lives. And that's also, a great privilege.
What's really interesting to me as you're sharing that with us is, like, right off the bat, it's not about you. And it's okay if we add ourselves in the equation, but in your case, it just automatically was, you love the energy and the spark that is happening in front of you, and you get joy from seeing something else being birthed. What is that like for you? Do you feel like you're removing yourself from the equation, or do you still feel engaged in the connections that you're helping to create?
Yeah, I think a combination of both. Sometimes, every connection is different. Like, it's like every story, every human. But I think there's some people that I just naturally knew, you have to know this person. And it's going to fire, whether it's your soul or your project or your business. But, and some of those people, it's as simple as connecting. And then there's others where you're just also probably vested in where they're going and what they're doing. And then you get a little bit more, you're integrated, as opposed to just, hey, you two have to meet and then take it from there.
Right.
I think it probably aligns. It probably goes back to how closely it is to the things that, you're looking for connection on. I think we all have these pieces that, we're looking for a level up when it comes to connection on. So if it's one of those things, stay in. If not, it's just about recognizing a couple of great people and thinking, let's take it from there.
Right. And you are somebody that it seems like you know yourself and your direction really well. That must come from a place of grounding, where you just know what makes you tick, what you love to be invested in, who you love to be surrounded by. Even in your travels, you were telling me a little bit before we hit record where you've been and some of the cool things that you were choosing to do in the last couple of months.
Yeah, I think I spent years, I want to say, training my gut. So a lot of it is gut, but my gut's probably trained. I think for a number of years, I wasn't the type of person that knew where I wanted to be and what I wanted to do in 5 years or 10 years. You get that interview question sometime. What I knew was, if I chased the things that brought me joy and helped me feel fulfilled, more would come. And I followed that path. And so I think that's a little bit about training your gut and your intuition to just trust following the positive energy and the people that help you feel that positive energy. And so I don't know that it's intentional at this point, but it's probably anchored in somewhere along the way, years of being conscious, at least, in choosing where I spend my time and whom I spend it with, to ensure that that it drives my purpose and why I'm here. Someone once told me, you are essentially, if you consider yourself the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And is that the person you want to be? And I mean, I don't know that it's perfect, but it really does. It does paint the picture of, like, pushing yourselves to be around the people that bring that out in you and make you feel the most connected, but also stretch your perspective and your positioning on things.
I love that you're saying you've kind of, I'm not sure if you put it this way, but you've kind of built the muscle for that, where it almost is something that, not that it's unconscious, but it's just something that is part of your everyday. And that's what I really want to encourage people with on this podcast as well, is that there's hope for you to connect people well, or to be connected in a way that really feeds you. But there's joy in that journey. There's a way that we can start to move into it and be surprised. What are some of those things in your life where you felt like you're actually seeing the evidence of those connections in your world?
Yeah, that's a good question, because I think a number of the, starting my own business a couple of years ago, the business is focused on story. I think about the people who've shown up to help, to just be, a sounding board, encourager, in some cases, an investor, pep rally people. There's seeds that I've planted throughout my whole life, right? I have people that are clients, that are investors, that are people I've known for a number of years. I also have some really key professional advisors coming on board that are people I worked with 20 years ago. So I think about, like, what happened 20 years ago with that executive that I've still been able to have this, relationship. and have it to the point where they're busy, successful executives, and they're like, yes, we will help you, and yes, we will connect you with the people you need to talk to about whether it's clients or more investors or some technology solutions. And I've been reflecting on that a lot lately, because it seems like this year alone, I've had so many people that have not come back. I've probably kept in touch with them all along, and but that are playing, lead supporting roles that I haven't really had in my lead supporting roles for a number of years. And I've been thinking about that partially, like what happened 20 years ago or 30 years ago, that started to form that, and how to get so lucky too a little bit. Some of it is just, I'm shaking my head saying that's really lucky that clearly I left enough of a strong relationship there that this many years later, they're willing to help me And I think I spent a lot of years being a connector. I spent a lot of my professional career in helping other people find opportunities, whether it's business opportunities, jobs. I did mergers and acquisitions, and so now it's like I'm on the other side where I'm asking for connections, and it's a different space. But at the same time, someone said to me the other day, but you've got like 25 years in the bank of helping other people and connecting other people. And it's okay if you ask for a couple of favors and say, can you help connect me to someone who, is in this space, or who might see the vision of what I'm doing and get it.
So given the conversation we had at the beginning, where it seemed like you were not in the equation, you really enjoyed introducing others, seeing the connections that are happening, and that they're weaving something together. How is that for you? Like, it is a little uncomfortable, but you're leaning into it, or do you find like, or have you kind of claimed this is my space now?
Yeah, I think it's uncomfortable. It is uncomfortable to be the one who also, to say I need help with something is hard. It's as we hear one of our good friends that speaks of trust, and asking for help is one of the best ways you can express to someone that you trust them. But it's hard, and you have to be vulnerable. And so, being on the other side is a newer position for me, and I'm still not being on the other side. Connection is always two-sided or three-sided, or how many ever side. I think their value comes to everyone that, gets meaningful connections anyhow. But being in a place now where I feel like I'm asking for help to get new connections, whether it be customers or investors or thought leaders, it's vulnerable, but it's also kind of refreshing. There's rarely a night I put my head on the pillow and am not thinking, wow, like, people generally are good, and they want to help other people, and they want to help the people they know be better and achieve their goals. And so it's a different position. It's vulnerable, it's a little uncomfortable, and also it's been super refreshing.
And kind of feeds into the idea of you being surprised by the yeses, or surprised by the, of course, what do you need?
And I always say back, like, there's some of these people, I'm like, I probably can't offer anything back to them that they need right now. But I always say, but I promise I pay it forward. Like, when people contact me and they need help, or they need a connection, Beautiful. Or they want some coaching, I'm right there. So
love it.
I think that is part of like this balance of being able to have these old connections and having people that their time is very valuable, be able to still be willing to give you time and energy or make connections for you. I'm always really cognizant to be super respectful and super grateful for those things as well, right? Like, if I say I'm going to take an hour of your time or a half hour of your time, if you've said you'll help me and you'll connect with me, I try and make it a little bit less. I never go over. Just trying to make it a good experience and have them leaving every situation or every encounter with me feeling a little bit better than they came as well.
Love it. And so the way that this has really come together for you in your platform, and I feel so privileged that we have had the chance to actually use MemoryKPR in the last couple of months, the idea of keeping the memories. And because that was such a big deal for me, I'd been wanting to do a retreat forever, and capturing the real-time feelings of those that were in the room and the learning that was happening in the room, and some of the fun little, mementos that they wanted to keep. that is all you're doing. So you're the founder of MemoryKPR. You've put this together, all these connections that you are asking for and that you have been creating over the years has brought you to this space now where this platform is now open to the public. But can you tell us where the idea came from and a little bit about what it does and how it helps those that are trying to create connections?
Absolutely. So we started MemoryKPR, and I do think there's more activity digitally than ever before, and yet what we're seeing is less meaningful connection. And specifically for me and for our tool around story, which is an event, which an activity of beginning, a middle, and end, all the pieces. It's not a 10-second flash on an Instagram screen. That's not a story. And so we started the company, and I started after a personal loss and losing some media of someone that I had lost from a social media account. And that was a piece of media that we as a family looked at a lot through grieving and through healing. And so it was more about memories to start. It was like, how do we keep people alive? How do we keep generations connected? And it really was about the individual person and their story and helping their story live on, protected, safe, what have you. And then when we started going, we recognized we underplayed the connection piece, the right here, right now connection piece of not necessarily just wanting to be able to relive it in the future, but actually wanting to build stories together digitally. And so the platform is pretty simple, but you can add all sorts of different types of media, picture, video, voice, and to tell a story, to capture experience. And we've had a ton of success in events because people are coming together on a shared vision. They are coming together. One of our values is 1 + 1 = 11, which is really just the sum of all parts. It's greater when you bring people together. And events is just the most beautiful way to show that is you can bring individuals together and the outcomes can be larger than you would think that small group can bring together. So with events with MemoryKPR, you can use the tool to capture the actual events. Like I think you did, like what's happening, schedule, maybe some engagement in advance with speakers, videos. But it also kind of helps it. Like you get so much when you're at a event, and after you're like, what was that? And or why was I laughing that hard? It can also give you a space at the event where you can all add your pieces of the story and capture what's happening, kind of crowdsourcing. Like we've had some companies lately that are like, we can't afford to have the professional videographer we used to have. So we're crowdsourcing pictures from everyone in the audience. And we've had a couple that said their videos, they actually think are better because you're getting pictures and videos from people who are experiencing the event. It's authentic because there's not a 10-foot lens and a filter on the end of that camera. This is just life. And it's real experiences. And it's real time as well. So you can, have the platform capture people throughout the day, and people can be adding their pictures and videos and fun little team building activities right in there. And then after the event as well, you can add more content to it. But it's just, we've had some people saying how great it's been just to have it to reflect upon. I think our brains only consume so much in a certain period of time. So, you're in an event and it's all happening so rapidly and you're trying to absorb it all. Being able to have something to reflect on is great. And then the final thing, I actually got someone who used us for an event last week. And the CEO actually said, I like being able to see the things I didn't see because all the tables were contributing some thoughts, some videos. They were doing action statements from the conference itself and what they were committing to, but also some of the fun along the way. And this crowdsourcing is that you're getting stuff from the corner you weren't in too.
Yes, exactly. What's so interesting, and just as you're talking, I had a meeting with a team last night. We did a bit of a strategy around an event that we're supporting them with for spring. And it's very different. The format's really different. We're using a micro-learning kind of format with multiple rooms, many speakers, facilitators that are going to be in different rooms. And as you're speaking, I know that there's a desire for us to be everywhere. And there's that little bit of fear of missing out, right? And so as you're talking, I'm like, that really is a beautiful way if you're not in that session or with that particular facilitator, that you might be able to catch up on some of that, because they are a community, they're a strong community, and they meet every year, they meet every month, for different meetings as well. But this is the big once a year thing. And the micro learning for me, the little pieces that are coming out of that, the something that meant something to me when we talk about true connection at an event, it's not just about what the organizers think are going that's the new trend, or that's going to be really cool, or why don't we do that because everyone's doing it. The deeper we can get into what is going on with our members or our attendees or registrants in a way that we can actually build from that something even better for next time, or we can feed into it as it's happening. That's such a beautiful way, I think, for people to feel connected with the big picture goals of a conference or an event.
I also think story works its way in there, in that, and maybe it's at the event and the story that's unfolding at the event. But I also think, and I know our tool is a good tool to showcase the story before. So we've had some people that have, rather than just doing the land acknowledgement, they've done the land acknowledgement, but they've put a little bit more into the Memory Keeper story in advance about the land, the people, message from the elder that is the treaty land they're on, and actually telling a little bit more of the story in advance has been just been more impactful. Like I think you get deeper into someone's story. Maybe it's hearing a little bit more about them, about why they're driven to do what they do. When you get to actually experience it, having heard the elder blessing before, having heard a little bit about the story, the people, the land, the history, and then having the land acknowledgement, the feedback we got was it was different. It was next level, as far as it, instead of being 2 sentences at the beginning of an event, it actually meant something because they heard a little bit more about the story behind it and the people. Tool is a good way to be able to showcase story. You get to an event and it maybe is 1 day or 2 day, but what is the story of the person that got there,
And like you say, to be reflecting on some of these things after the fact too, when things are coming at us really fast, and when we have time to reflect and really, what was that I just experienced? There are people that they're not processing necessarily in the moment. They need days or weeks sometimes to process what happened, or they're thinking about something and they want to go back and see what did that mean for our group or for the ones that were part of a discussion.
It's a beautiful story. So, but one of the events that we were used at, and I think I've shared a bit, a group of Indigenous women that are living with HIV, and they did some recording messages, and it was basically, if you go home and you're having a bad day, here's the good energy we had here supporting each other that we want you to remember. So they all had messages for each other, not like specific to the name, but like messages for this group about the hopeful things they heard. And I have heard back from someone who said they, re-listening to those a couple of weeks later on a bad day was all she needed. Was like, I'm back in this support network that I had for 2 days all over again.
When we see the good in what technology brings us, and if we lean into that good and make that louder or stronger or more connected than ever, I think it really gives us the opportunity to do exactly that, even if we feel like we're not able to see those people again necessarily, but it brings us back to the moment, which enhances, I think, our present.
Yeah. And we have made some in our technology design, we've made some intentional choices. And one of them, which is somewhat controversial, is that we don't, so you have a gallery wall and you have different pieces of media that you can consume and you can sort it into chapters and what have you. But what we don't have is like buttons. And so we think, whether one person liked that story or 100 people like that story, that's not the foundation of honoring a story or a connection. And so we've made some intentional choices like that just leave it authentic and leave it so that it is about the individual and how they experience that.
I love that. For those that are out there that are new to what Memory Keeper is, can you describe, kind of map this out for us? What exactly, when they sign on, they become a member of what you've created, what are they actually getting? And how, when we're talking about these stories, what practically does that look like for an organizer?
And thank you for asking me, because I get right into the story and then I forget to say, I should tell you what our company does. So MemoryKPR is a digital platform. We have individual consumers that use it to capture their stories. And we also have businesses and events that use us. The platform itself is essentially a gallery that you can sort and tell stories. So you can add pictures, video, you can add voice onto still picture, and text. You create this gallery wall, and it's really easy to invite people to contribute or share to it, and interact with it. And so some people use it before an event, during an event, after an event, or all. It's very easy. It's almost social media like, in that it's really easy to create a story. And we have businesses that use us that are like, we don't have a tech person anymore. This is the perfect solution. You can create a story. You also have some control around the story. So maybe there's some things you want everyone to see. Maybe there's some things you don't. You have the ability to decide what's on the wall and what's not. You have the ability to decide if it's a public story, or if you want to keep it just for you and have people contribute for your own best. When you have an account, you can have multiple stories. But as soon as you have a story, you also have a link and a QR code that links to it. And so at events, let's say having the QR code on the tables or at registration allows you to share information really easily. But also, if you want, you can open it up for people to add to the story as well, just by scanning the QR code. They don't need the app, they don't need a code. And so it can be as simple as, we don't know how we're going to get agendas and things like that on every table, or we might need to change the agenda, but we want to put something on the table right now. You put the QR code on the table. In the back end, you can change what's on the story as many times as you like. Mm-hmm. So it could be as simple as that, or as complex as we're gathering impact statements at the end, or it's a not-for-profit and we're giving you a couple videos of the people you've helped. Like we have some United Way that, this is the story of someone who was helped last year from the campaign, and it's at the fundraiser. So it can be as complicated, not complicated. Nothing about it's complicated. It's a really
It isn't.
But it can be, more complex of a story, more characters, I say, or it could be as simple as a page where you put information for people to consume.
And there are chapters also in the story that I really loved using for the retreat. So for those of you that are thinking of a story as a one post, the story in the context of an event, a conference, a retreat, it's like the bucket that you're going to be putting everything in, or this is the house that you're building, and then there's going to be different rooms. So can you explain the chapter part of the story for us?
So I think, like I said, you can have multiple stories, but really for an event, you're probably making one story. And I think that's like the shell. So the story is the shell file. Every story has a unique link to it, come to it, a unique QR code, and can have its unique authors. So you can have 10 stories and have different authors with each of them. Once you get into the story, you can have an additional file structure, which is essentially creating chapters. We have weddings, let's say, that might say the stagette, engagement party, the rehearsal dinner, the wedding day. So you can break it up into different parts, and then that helps people consume the story easier, because when they log in to view it or scan the QR code to view it, there's chapters on the side and they can click the chapter they want. But chapter could be agenda, speakers bios, lunch menu, pretty open to whatever you want. But so it breaks down the file structure, and then that helps people consume the content, and also you organize your content a little bit easier. And so that story is the space where all these different pieces of media occur, but you can sort them, you can title them. And so it can seem very organized with a number of pieces of media in there.
Yeah. And what I love too about creating this is that you have been so hands-on with what we were trying to create for the Candy Retreat. And I think that your passion for what you want to see happen here. So not just that it's your business, but there is again, you're looking in on these connections and you're like, I love the stories that every time we talk, there's another story of another event or another group that's using the platform, and how it's actually been that literally a platform for connection for them. When we talk about really creating authentic connections, giving the opportunity for people to create that in a way that's meaningful to them, and not trying to overplan, coordinate.
Prescribe, yeah. Yes. And that's why
How we connect.
Because I say, there's a lot of flexibility in the product to make it what you want. At the same time, some people need you to say it has to be like this just to wrap their head around something new.
Yeah.
So I always say our team's here for that. We'll always walk people through. We'll help you create your stories. We'll help you say that might be too much or too little content and what looks good. But there's a lot of flexibility in the product as well. And the other thing I didn't mention, because, we dance in this world where there's also social media and people want people to post things and hashtag them. We're not seeing the same connection occur on a social media platform as we are if you create a memory keeper for your community, whether that's the event community. But what we can do is we can also add hashtags to the story. So if you encourage people to do social media as well, we can add the hashtags to your memory keeper story. So anything that happens on Instagram or Twitter also gets pulled into the story. But what we're seeing is people are a lot more likely to share in a direct to the story than they are to put it on their own social media account to get brought into the story. So
yeah,
that tells
beautiful
us about creating community.
It really does. And so as you're moving forward in this, and I know any business goes through iterations, and I'm sure you've gone through a few different iterations to get where you are now. Yeah. What are you looking forward to the most in the next 6 months with what you've created here?
Yeah. Okay. So two things. One, I am sincerely excited that we've changed the product a bit so that it's not showcasing necessarily Memory Keeper. You can brand it as a business account. You can add your own logo. Your own logo goes on the QR code. You can add links if you have a Shopify or if you want to, direct people. We have some artists who use it and then they direct people to their shop or their bookings. So the technical things of just being able to showcase like our job, and one of our other values is to honor the story. And so to be able to showcase the story as opposed to we're the passenger, the story and the event and the relationships and connections that occur there. That's the hero of the story. So being able to build a product and launch these things within the product that help you do that better is one thing I'm excited for. And the other thing I'm excited for is just, we've got some really meaningful events, some not-for-profit that are just close to my heart too, that are showcasing some really important, telling some really important stories through the platform, and also engaging. Like it's an excellent activation tool. I think I told you the story maybe before about an event where they said like the first person to get to go to the breakfast buffet line is the goofiest selfie that ends up in the memory keeper. And so it was an activation tool. It broke the ice for these new tables. But what they found was starting the day like that, they got so much content from people because they all knew how to use it quickly. And they started having fun with it. So it was a great activation tool. So the other thing I'm excited about is just how this can connect people at an event, but beyond an event, is that I can reflect back, continue to experience the things I experienced for that 1 or 2 days at an event.
That's amazing. I'm excited to be growing with you in the next year to come. And I have, my team is growing again. So that's amazing. So we're in a really good space right now where we're looking at designing our workshops coming up in the new year, and the retreat coming next fall, and some other partner events that are happening. And so a lot buzzing right now. And I do see that Memory Keeper has a big part to play. Oh. And so what I'd love to hear from you, just as we wrap today, you as a natural connector, I believe that your heart is that others learn that way, that you are connecting others together, but that they're also then starting to connect others together, and that ripple effect starts happening. If you could see big picture in the world, connections happening in a deeper, more meaningful way, how could we start doing that today? How could we actually lean in and take some of the things that you've learned in the last few years, not just creating Memory Keeper, but as somebody that is a natural connector in our world and work moving forward?
Yeah, I think, honestly, I think one of the biggest things we can do is first look inward and really know ourselves well enough to show up as ourselves. I think that the most meaningful and long-lasting connections I've made have been with people who you walk away and you say, they know who they are and they know who they're not. And they're good with it. And so I think that is the foundation of all things connection I think gratitude works itself into pretty much everything that's good. but I think starting with knowing yourself and slowing down enough to understand your own story, what it was, what it is, and what it's going to be, just helps you show up in a way that can lead to larger connection. And I think the other thing is I think we just need to be grounded back in respecting that we're all here with a unique path and a unique, gift that we bring to this earth, and being able to honor that. And so I don't know, there's people out there that feel lonely and that kills me as a connector, and so I think knowing those things and having empathy for how other people figure them out themselves or at a different part in your journey, and still being able to connect and show up as yourself. And that's the important. I think that's important. Like, I think about, I'm not Catholic, I'll start with that, but the same press so CC, and it's like, if you want peace, it's like, make me a vessel of it. And I think that with connection, it's important for us to just show up authentically and
that it starts with us.
Yeah, exactly. Everything.
I love it.
It's so easy to pick out what else should happen with other people in them.
Isn't
That's just us not wanting to look in the mirror and say, but what do I have to do?
Exactly. And trusting that will have that ripple effect in the world.
Right. Because we do we all think we're our own lead characters in our own movies, but we also all think we're smaller than we are, and so we think, oh, but I'm one person and what can I? And there is a huge ripple effect for just showing up as yourself authentically and trying to connect to other people that way.
And there's probably a connection to that. And what you said about, 20 years ago, I knew these people and now they're showing up for me.
That's potentially true. And it's an evolution. Did I know who I was 20 years ago? I guess that we're all works in progress.
There you go. Always. If somebody listening today wants to get a hold of you, continue this conversation, learn more about MemoryKeeper, how do they get a hold of you?
Yes. We're on everything. So you can find us at memoryKPR.com, memoryKPR. We have email for contact on there as well. We're on Instagram, we're on Twitter, we're on LinkedIn. We're most active probably on Instagram, again, memoryKPR. And my email contact information is on the website as well. And I'm on LinkedIn, Jessica McNaughton. And you might have guessed it, but I love connecting with people. And so whether it's that you're curious about using MemoryKeeper to make some lasting impressions for your events, activate your audience, and or you're curious about the path. I, worked corporate my entire life, and 3 years ago decided to make a startup. And so if you have your own idea and you're like, what the heck am I thinking? And you want to talk to someone else. I love those conversations. Like, we need to be each other's, cheerleaders.
I love that. And it's been such a gift to get to know you. And I'm honored to be with you on this journey, whatever that looks like for you. Always here to support as well. And if anyone is looking on how to enhance your events for next year, there is a platform, simple, affordable, and with a team behind it that has the heart that you need. So reach out to Jessica if you need something that really is going to just take your event to the next level. Thank you so much, Jessica. I so appreciate you and that you're here with me today.
Thank you, Lisa. I appreciate this and the connection we've made. So thank you.
The Connector Next Door podcast is produced by Candy Event Consulting, where everyday event planners and their teams gain clarity, get connected, and grow in confidence. Subscribe at www.candyconsulting.ca to hear visits with everyday event planners who are putting connections first.